Welcome into another playoff edition of Daily Faceoff Live, one of the very few game day editions of this show that we have remaining in the season. Game 4, Oilers-Panthers later on tonight. As always, this show is a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the code NATION, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. YouTube chat, we're looking for your inbox questions as always. And as always, here's Frank Seravalli. Frank, how you doing?
I'm good. How's Florida treating you? Staying warm?
Well, I'm cold right now because I'm in an arena, but yes, it's very hot outside. I don't handle humidity well, and I didn't handle elbow room all that well either. Man enough to admit when I'm playing a little injured, Frank.
Gets the best of us every time.
It'll happen. Let's start in the Stanley Cup final. We're obviously going to talk a little offseason, do some trade stuff in a little bit as well. But game 4 tonight here in Florida. Both teams were just on the ice behind me not that long ago. We'll talk about the Oilers lineup changes in a bit. Jason Gregor is going to be our big segment today, so we'll really dig in to the Oilers perspective. But let's maybe start with Florida, Frank. This is a team that just kind of seeing them on the ice, seeing the vibes, they are very, very loose. They are very confident. They've been through every playoff scenario that you possibly could over the last number of years, and that's why I don't think a blowout win does anything to their ego. I don't think they're taking the foot off the gas going, ooh, we got the Oilers now.
I'm with you, and I think they're in an incredible position here to win a second straight Stanley Cup. Not saying it's going to happen. It's just that they proved in game 3 that they're very comfortable playing any which style you want to play. We can drag you into the alley and beat you. We can beat you with brawn and skill. We can beat you with speed. We can forecheck you to death. I mean, they are really one of the most well-rounded teams that we've ever seen. And I've said this, and people have laughed at me over the last few weeks as I said that the Panthers, I think this team, this core, would give any team over the last few decades a run for its money. I'm talking 2010s Blackhawks, 2010s Kings, Penguins, whoever it might be that had a dynastic era. This Florida team is just as good, if not better, for their versatility in the way that they play. And they have shown that time and time again. Tense? Why would you feel tense today? We're halfway home to Lord Stanley. No reason to feel that way. And one more win tonight, and you can more or less put a nail in the Edmonton Oilers coffin.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, I mean, myself included, will sit there and go, if the Oilers lose tonight, it's 3-1. But hey, they came back from down 3-0 last year, so 3-1's easier to come back from. But here's the other part of that, Frank. The Florida Panthers blew a 3-0 lead last year. They aren't taking, they're not taking their foot off the gas. Remember last year, game 4, they got smoked. That was an 8-1 drubbing. Florida absolutely took their eye off the ball a little bit. I cannot see a team coached by Paul Maurice with everything you listed and the vets they have and this core blowing a second series lead. It's hard to imagine.
And the mountain would be that much more tall for Edmonton to scale, knowing the work that's required to do it. Plus, I feel like a huge part of this series to this point, yeah, the Oilers have had some really impressive stretches and moments, but when they haven't looked good, it's because of what Florida's doing to them as opposed to the Oilers really just playing poorly.
Yeah, there were, again, 5 or 6 things that went wrong or were areas where the Oilers were deficient in the game. And listen, even if you correct 3, 4, 5 of those things, you still got to solve Sergei Bobrovsky as well. I know it's a 6-1 win, so the goalie doesn't get a lot of love, but he still faced a lot of rubber in that game 3 drubbing, and he made some excellent saves when the Oilers got their power plays early on. Let's shift to the Oilers a little bit, Frank. Chris Knobloch said yesterday that they were contemplating one lineup change. Well, they end up making 2. Jeff Skinner's going to draw into the Oilers lineup for Viktor Arvidsson up front. And on the blue line, it's Troy Stecher for John Klingberg, as we speculated on yesterday's show. I love the adjustment on the blue line. I think these pairings have shown that they work. Nurse and Stecher were together for basically 2 rounds of the playoffs. They were excellent. Kulak and Bouchard were together for basically the whole playoffs up until Ekholm returned. They were very, very good. And you ease the minutes on Ekholm a bit, put him on your third pair. I like all these adjustments from Knobloch.
Couldn't agree more. I'm really nonplussed on the Skinner thing. I'm not saying Arvidsson has been good. I just don't know what Skinner brings to your lineup that makes you, salivate to put him in. But the pairings it's a great point. And I think Stecher has proven that he can be the Darnell Nurse whisperer, which if you can solve that issue for your team, that's a huge leg up. Kulak, since going back and when Ekholm drew back into the lineup, Kulak has just been okay. And so if you can get Kulak back to playoff Brett Kulak, that's a huge bonus as well. And so I just think these were the uncomfortable changes to make because Klingberg really did play well for a stretch of time, but he hasn't given you much in this cup final. And there's no doubt that Ekholm coming back kind of threw things out of whack, which is a weird thing to say when you're getting maybe your number 2 defenseman back, that it changed things up for you. But I think that is the reality.
We'll get more into this later on with Gregor. Stuart Skinner, by the way, is going to get the start. We debated this a little bit yesterday. There's justification on both ends of it. I don't blame Chris Knobloch at all for rolling with his guy a little bit in Stu Skinner, but I understand.
But I do think we were going to have Carter Hutton on to talk goalies, but I do think that you'll know in the first couple minutes what kind of Stuart Skinner you're getting. It's either going to be a guy who is overamped and overhyped and swimming out of his crease, or he's going to be a guy that's composed and is going to give you a real good chance to win.
Yeah, and that's exactly what game 3 was. Like that first Brad Marchand goal, it wasn't a bad goal to give up, but he was on his belly 3 feet out of the crease when it goes in. And I turned to Jason Demers in the press box, and we both kind of looked at each other and we're like, that's the first time Stu Skinner's done that in a while. He was so calm, so composed for that 3-week run when he was hot. Yeah, if he's lost his game, you'll know very early on. That's a good point, Frank. Look at you filling in for Carter Hutton, giving us some goaltending analysis. We'll talk more Cup final with Gregor in a couple of minutes, but let's play the rating game, Frank. I'm going to give you a take. You're going to rate it for me. 10 being you're bang on, Tyler. What a genius thing to say. 1 being don't say that. You're an idiot. So let's start with the Anaheim Ducks, who they officially have the Chris Kreider deal done. Can we actually? What is the full deal? Can you explain it?
So it's Chris Kreider with no salary retained going to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for Carey Terrance, 2nd-round pick, who is a bottom of the lineup potential center for you, a real wild card, a conscientious prospect, but definitely not a sure bet to be an NHL player. And then there's a pick swap. It's the Ducks are getting their 4th-round pick back from the Jacob Trouba trade, and in exchange, the Rangers are getting Toronto's 3rd-round pick. So the Rangers move up 15 spots in the draft. And yeah, it's Chris Kreider has signed off on the deal. The trade call has not happened yet, but will happen very soon and will be announced by the team. And it's the end of an era in New York.
Yeah, so my first one I want to throw you for the rating game is about the Anaheim Ducks. Even taking on Kreider's full salary, they still have north of $30 million in cap space. I'm going to say the Ducks add 1 more forward, making an $8 million plus AAV. They will make a big splash via trade, via free agency. They will bring in another big piece to the forward group. Give me a rating.
7. I mean, definitely not stupid. I could see it being in the realm of possibility. I just want to caution everyone because I've seen a ton of reporting out there and I have it from very reliable sources to pour cold water on this. If you think the Anaheim Ducks are going to be writing a blank check for Mitch Marner, please check yourself. I've seen, they're going to be willing to offer $14 million a year for Marner. No, not happening. Not the case. Not in their plans. Does that mean they won't pursue Mitch Marner? No, it means that if they do, they're going to do it in a reasonable fashion. That it's not just, hey, you get whatever you want because we want to acquire the player. They are not in that business. And beyond that, things are going to get expensive for them in a hurry. You talk about their cap situation, how good it is. Of course, it's always good when your team struggles and you've got guys playing on entry-level deals, but Dostal, McTavish, Lacombe, all these guys are going to require new deals in short order, and it adds up fast. So the last thing you want to be doing is trying to scrounge under couch cushions for cap space when you were in a perfect salary cap situation and then went out and screwed it up.
Let's stay in the Pacific Division. I keep hearing all this stuff that, Vegas wants to make a big ad, and they always do, right? They always find a way. And I'm looking at their cap situation, Frank, and I just can't see a path unless you're going to trade a really important piece. I'm going to say the Golden Knights, despite their efforts, will go the summer without a major addition. Give me a rating.
2. I think the Golden Knights know that they need to be much better. I think they see this core aging rapidly. I think they understand the position that they're in defensively. A couple years ago, you're like, man, this team had 3 really good defensemen on, expensive but somewhat reasonable deals. Now all of a sudden you look at this team and you go, ooh, what's up with Alex Pietrangelo moving forward? Noah Hannafin is a nice to have, but is an accessory piece as a number 3. Shea Theodore needed to be a lot better in the playoffs. And you look at this group up front, which has always been top heavy. I think they go out and try and get one of these guys. I think they were very, very close to having a deal done to get Mitch Marner at the trade deadline. It didn't happen, but I think that they're the team to watch when it comes to Marner and this summer.
All right, a lot of teams in the Pacific Division could end up being pretty busy. So let's stick there for our offseason preview. And the Calgary Flames are the team that's up today, Frank, and an organization that you definitely view a lot differently than you probably did 12 months ago. Dustin Wolf is looking like he's going to be a star between the pipes. I also believe he's eligible for an extension this summer, but $26.8 million in cap space. How do you think Craig Conroy prioritizes things this summer?
They're going to be aggressive in trying to get players that fit their age scheme. Who are the types of players that they're going to be calling on? Marco Rossi, JJ Peterka, guys that can continue to grow with this team. Look at the trade last year with the Philadelphia Flyers for Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee. Didn't really work out the way that they wanted to with their production down the stretch for a team that really struggled to score goals, but they are buoyed by Dustin Wolf, who finished runner-up for the Calder Trophy yesterday, Tuesday, that is really going to drag this team closer to the playoffs, even though goaltending can be fickle and no one really knows what to expect year after year. But Wolf should theoretically be dragging this team closer to the playoffs than not. What that says to me and signals to me is a team that, whether they wanted to or not, probably needs to adjust their timeline and speed it up a bit because they're getting further away from the lottery picks. And if that's the case, then just rip the Band-Aid off and try and be good a little bit better than you thought you should. So that's what Calgary's facing. They really desperately want to add scoring. They'd really like to find a center, preferably a right shot center if they can. They're going to try and swing big, but it's not going to be in the free agent market, and it's not going to be long-term on guys that are just there to help prop up this team in the meantime. It's going to be methodical adds for the Calgary Flames if they get to that point.
2 first-round picks in this year's draft, 2 first-round picks in next year's draft as well. So again, they have a lot of trade capital, and then you can even look at something like a Rasmus Anderson deal could bring in some assets that then they could flip.
Yeah, so 2 things to keep in mind. One, this is a big week on the Anderson front. They're scheduled to begin trading numbers for the first time and talking about what an extension might look like, and that will drive the tenor and conversation of how the Anderson summer plays out. And 2, the Flames are willing to move picks. They're willing to move those first-round picks to either acquire players that they think can help them now and fit that age scheme, or they're willing to leverage those picks to try and move up in the first round into a spot where they believe they could get closer to a difference maker.
All right, let's keep cruising along with the show, Frank, and get to our big segment for the day. It's the All 32, and it's brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, where you can get a custom ring built and delivered in less than 4 weeks through the Charm Masterpiece program. It all comes with their unbelievable pricing guarantee. Go to charmdiamondcenters.com. Jason Gregor, one half of the DFO Rundown, the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440 and writer at OilersNation.com. Greg, second time in one day we're chatting with each other, but let's dig into this Stanley Cup final matchup a little bit. And the Oilers in Florida, it's been a struggle for them offensively. When you go back to the beginning of last year's Cup final, on home ice, the Oilers are averaging 4.8 goals per game. On the road, just 1.6. What do you think is causing that drop?
Well, 5-on-5, it's like a desert. They got 2 goals 5-on-5 in 5 games. So, Connor McDavid has 4 points. He was unreal in Game 5 last year. Everybody remembers the play he made, to set up Corey Perry to make it 3-0. It was a great play. But I think overall, Florida has done a good job in shutting Edmonton down. Edmonton, I believe, in Florida has to do a better job of getting traffic in front of Bobrovsky. That is, you look at it in this series, even in last, high danger chances on both teams are fairly similar. But the problem is Edmonton, the shots on goal, I know people look at shots on goal and they say, oh, look, Edmonton's got more. Yeah, but it's because of the defense. Bouchard has 24 shots himself. The Panthers defense score has 31 total. Like the Oilers forwards actually have 2 fewer shots than Florida's forwards. And so if you have guys who naturally crash the net, well, then point shots are going to increase your goal chance. But the Edmonton Oilers, especially without Zach Hyman, like outside of Corey Perry, they don't have a lot of guys who are natural net front presence. So I think a big reason why their lack of scoring in Florida is, well, twofold. They're behind too often. That's number one. Florida, when they get the lead, they will just slowly choke the game out. So I think Edmonton's got to have better starts, and they got to get a little bit more traffic in front. They've only had 2 layered screens this year, and one of them's resulted in a goal. So I would try to do that a bit more.
Okay, so let's unpack the Connor McDavid factor, because you and I were just talking about this on the DFO rundown. At 5-on-5 in this series, the Oilers are out shooting the Panthers 44-27 with McDavid on the ice, yet they are being outscored 4-2 by Florida. In your estimation, is that Florida defending really well, or is that McDavid just being unlucky and due for a breakthrough?
Probably a bit of both, which I know is fence sitting, but I think it's true. Like you look at last game, McDavid had their best chance, but look at their shots. Don't shoot low on Bobrovsky. Like every scouting report that you'll talk to people is every goalie's got a little bit of a weakness, and his is not on the ice. That's his best strength. He's got the wide butterfly stance. When he gets down better than any goalie there. So McDavid was in a great lane, then he shot right on the ice, and Bobrovsky, like it's a high danger chance, but it's not a high danger shot, if that makes any sense. And so I think that's a little bit of it. Also, I'd like to go through that, Frank, and see how many of those shots are from the blue line, right? So you might outshoot them, but if you're outshooting them from distance with no screens in front, like Bobrovsky's not giving up goals from distance with no one in front of him very often. Like I know Arvidsson did, but even on the Arvidsson goal, if you look at it, there was a screen kind of as he shot it through the defender. So it wasn't completely, a clear shot. So I think that's probably part of it. And especially in Florida, they get the Barkov-Reinhart combo and the Forsling trio. So they like that triangle against McDavid. And I think it's smart for them to put Connor Brown. Like I love Corey Perry, guys, but his speed or lack thereof 5-on-5 is something that's not working, I think, at least this year.
Do you agree with Chris Knobloch's decision to go with Stuart Skinner in Game 4?
I do, yes. Skinner never loses Game 4. The Oilers are actually very good in Game 4. And when I look at if both goalies give me their best game, who's better? It's Stuart Skinner. And I know that at times his bad game's worse, but I don't think Stuart Skinner had a bad game. Like I don't really blame the last game on Stu Skinner. I didn't like the first goal, no question. That wasn't good, but he wasn't the only one. That was foreshadowing for what was going to be a train wreck of a night, is what that goal was. So I think you got to go with the guys that got you there, and Stu Skinner is your best option. Now, if they lose tonight and Skinner is terrible, well then obviously I think they'll go to Pickard. But I thought it was the right decision to stick with Skinner.
You wrote a piece at Oilers Nation looking into what the summer could look like for both the Oilers and Panthers. And listen, I know it's maybe premature to be talking about offseason moves in the middle of a cup final, but win or lose, how different do you think this Oilers roster is next season? Or do you think they're pretty committed to running it back with a very similar group?
Well, it's going to be different because Evan Bouchard's going to be he's going to jump up like $6.5-7 million, right? So that's going to change some things. That they're going to lose some guys to free agency. It's always different. I don't think you can ever just stay status quo. And I know he got healthy scratch today, but I don't think John Klingberg was coming back anyway. I think as a right shot defenseman who could move the puck, he just was going to be outside of Edmonton's price range. Trent Frederick, I fully expect to be back in Edmonton. Connor Brown, maybe. I think it'll depend on because if they win, I do believe a lot of it for some guys will depend on if they win. Right? Like if you win, now you can say, hey, I got my cup. Maybe I'm Connor Brown. Do I want to take less again in Edmonton, or do I take a 3-year deal at, $2.8 to $3 million on the open market? So I think there is still a little factor there. And that's probably the same way for Florida, guys. Like, what if the Panthers win? Does Brad Marchand say, okay, I've won my second cup, right? 14 years in between. Now maybe I'll go to the highest bidder.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, the Panthers obviously have a couple of big free agency decisions to make. Greggs, appreciate you popping on short notice. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, boys, I feel like a guy who came out of the press box. No problem. Hopefully it was good.
Yeah, Gregor doing his best Jeff Skinner, just coming in down from the press box, point per game guy in the playoffs. Frank, hashtag Ask DFO time. I want to throw you one from a Rangers fan. Jason is in our chat. Jason Harnick. It's not Jason Gregor asking us questions. He said, with the flexibility the Rangers gained, do they go big game hunting, or are they going to use that money to lock up their own guys?
Oh, I think they're definitely interested in trying to make their team a lot better by addition. And still to be determined seems very likely at this point that Keandre Miller is on the move as they reinvent their defense. Which top-end defensemen are they going to go after? They have to find a way to defend better. I know there's been lots of speculation about potential interest in Vladislav Gavrikov, which you could see making some sense on the left side. Short of that, I think they're a team that doesn't see any point in sitting back and just plodding along here, PLODDING. They want to move the needle, and they want to, that this is why they're tearing down part of their core that's been there for a long time, and Trouba and Kreider and Goodrow and whoever else. Just making the playoffs, just getting to the conference final, just winning the President's Trophy, that doesn't mean anything to them. They want to win the Stanley Cup. And so that's going to be how aggressive, that's going to drive or be the compass for how aggressive they are this summer.
Let me ask you a similar question to the one I asked Greg's there. Between the Oilers and Panthers, which roster do you think looks the most different on opening night next year?
Probably the Oilers.
Yeah. Again, there's a couple of contracts there, veteran guys I think they're going to have to try and move off from if they want to make other things work salary cap-wise. Let's get to our daily bets for today, brought to you by Bet365, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. You can download the app, use the code NATION. Whatever the moment, whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Frank, the Oilers underdogs tonight, plus 125 on the money line. So let me give you a 3-leg same game parlay for the Oilers bouncing back. Oilers money line, McDavid 2 points, and under 6.5 goals in this game. The over is smashed in 3 straight hockey games. I feel like at some point we're due for a low-scoring one. What do you make of that? McDavid powers a low-scoring Oilers bounce-back win.
I could see it. I mean, I would think that we're probably due for a pretty tight game, but it's hard to say. I mean, look, the Panthers. Here's the truth: is with 6, 5, and 4 goals. Is that right? The Oilers haven't demonstrated yet that the Panthers can be held off the score sheet. So until that happens, I'd say probably not.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the way the Oilers' goal scoring drops off. I mean, even the shots on goal. On home ice in the last 2 Cup finals, Oilers averaging 36.6 shots. On the road, that number drops to 26.4. 10 fewer shots per game on the road versus at home for the Oilers. I do think that might be why they added in a guy like Jeff Skinner. Again, not that Viktor Arvidsson has been poor, but having a guy who can change the game with one shot the way Skinner can, if he gets an opportunity, he scores on a lot of his shots. Like, I don't know. I think they maybe, with McDavid and Draisaitl off the ice, recognize they just need a bit more offensive creation there, and Arvidsson maybe just wasn't giving them that, or Skinner is just a bit better equipped to give them that.
Yeah, Arvidsson's been a huge disappointment. He's, as Gregor alluded to, he's going to be on my trade targets board at some point here in the very near future. He was just, I watched so many playoff runs with Viktor Arvidsson right at the center of all the chaos, making things happen in front of the net, and his game has just not been there.
All right, let's wrap up the show with a little bit of garbage time. Frank, out in Atlanta, a $3 billion development that comes with an 18,000-seat NHL-ready arena. It has hockey fans raising an eyebrow going, is there a group in Atlanta getting ready for expansion? What would you say to the expansion rumblings in this news out of Atlanta? Is it it's got to be way too early to be doing this, right?
No, this is very legitimate. This is the Krause group in Atlanta with the Forsyth County. They've been operating at full steam here. They viewed this as a huge hurdle to actually getting a team. And you heard the commissioner and deputy commissioner at the Stanley Cup final to kick off this series say that they're not opening a formal expansion process, but what they're going to do is allow any group that feels like they've got all of their ducks in a row to come in and make a pitch and see whether they get a thumbs up or thumbs down from the executive committee and the board of governors. This group seems as well positioned as any. And I think with proper arena placement, targeting the core demographic of hockey fans, that they feel like they could be successful and get a team, that I think it's a very real possibility, if not likely, that the NHL will be back in Atlanta when this opens.
The idea of the NHL expanding by 2 teams, I think there might be a lot of hockey purists, if you want to call them that would be like, oh man, another team in Canada maybe to give it 8. What about somewhere flashy like Houston? Frank, is there not a chance that if they expand to 34 teams, it's just Phoenix and Atlanta getting their teams back?
Correct. Total real possibility. And I'd say I understand the frustration. I covered way too many games in Atlanta with half empty buildings, and it was really disappointing. But I've also been a big believer that there's a strong market in Arizona, that if you place the arena in the proper spot, that the result could be different. Part of it in Atlanta was just that they never invested in the team for it to be good either. So that part hurt. Don Waddell could tell you stories for days. So it's an interesting scenario. And I also think, by the way, that the NHL is open to having 33 teams for a stretch of time and having it be unbalanced.
Yeah, much like they did, obviously, when Vegas came in. All right, that is a wrap on today's edition of the show. Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final goes tonight, and a programming note tomorrow. Travel day, obviously, with the tight turnaround, so there's going to be no edition of Daily Faceoff live for you on Friday. But Frank and I will be back on Monday, where there is a chance the Stanley Cup's been handed out by the time we talk next, Frank.
Yeah, and I was going to say, lucky you, because if you're battling the after effects of the elbow room, there's quite literally no place on earth better to do a show than inside a cold hockey rink.
Exactly. Thank you, Frank. Thank you to everybody in the YouTube. Big shout out to Jason Gregor for joining us last minute as well. That is a wrap on another week of Daily Faceoff Live. We'll see you all right back here on Monday. Enjoy the hockey. What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content. From daily live shows with Frank Seravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking. You're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.